California Market Live update. And momentarily, we're going to bring our guest, our inside realtor in Corona, California, Craig Yace. He's going to be coming momentarily. But in the meantime, Scott and I are going to talk to you about some interesting things. So a new segment we're going to start doing our shows. We're going to start listing 3 things, and this is what you get to know us. We're colorful. We have a lot of fun stuff in the background, and we're going to name 3 different things at the beginning of the show that are interesting facts about us. And at the end of the show, you're going to tell us, we're going to, hopefully in the comments, who you think is who, and then we'll reveal it at the end. Okay. So, number 1 of us has been on Judge Judy. Okay. Yeah. One of us has been on Judge Judy.
Okay.
Could be Craig, could be Scott, could be me.
All right. What else we got?
Another one of us has performed the legendary metamorphosis magic trick made legendary by Houdini himself. Has performed it for large audiences multiple times as a professional magician.
All right. So whoever that is, I'm not going to give it up because I know these answers, but whoever it is, then we'll have to figure out if that person will perform it for us live on this stream. But yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yes. I know it is too. I guarantee you it's not happening. The third and less exciting, because I didn't get the information from him yet, is somebody has an innate ability to predict what somebody was texting, even though the text was not complete. And this comes from experience. So, like reading minds.
All right. Well, all right. So those are 3 good ones. I like it.
Okay. So that's some fun stuff. Now let's talk business. All right. So yeah. Scott, I did last week we talked about, why now is a good time to buy a home.
Right.
And we started to touch bases on strategies on loans, on how to negotiate, on purchasing a home. So I put the comparison together. I'm going to bring up my screen. I'm going to share my screen here. And I did a side-by-side. And Scott, I don't know if you can see it on your end. Is it showing?
I can. Yeah, okay. I can.
So
that's
I did a side-by-side
home, right? Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So this is an $800,000 home with down payment. It qualified for the conforming loan limits in the area of $726,000, so you can get the best rates possible. And I did an analysis putting 10% down versus 20% down. So in this case, it was $800,000 purchase. It's either 80 down or 160. Significant difference of money out of your pocket, if you ask me. And well, interestingly enough, when I priced it, the interest rates were exactly the same. They're both 5.5% in today's rates. Somebody's 740, good income, etc. The difference being, and I'm gonna have to change where I'm at on this. Okay, here we go. The difference being the down payment and then mortgage insurance. So the mortgage insurance for this was only $126 a month. And I think Craig was trying to pop in. Is that?
Yeah, you know what? That's Craig. I can let him in.
Okay, let him in while I keep talking, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the mortgage insurance was $126, and the differential in your payment by putting 10% down or 20%. Your closing costs can be a little bit more because you have more coming out of pocket by about $3,000, big deal.
Yeah.
But the monthly savings is $580. So you put $80,000 out of your pocket more, pay a little bit more in closing costs, and you're going to pay or save, if you put 20% down, $580 a month. Now, if I'm buying a house right now, I'm going all day long and putting the 10% down and taking that mortgage insurance. A couple reasons why. Number one, I know rates are coming down, and I'm okay with paying a little bit more, but keeping that money liquid in my pocket and then refinancing in a year or two. Number two, if we did an analysis on redeploying that cash into a different asset class, and I just put it into a, like an S&P at, 8% return.
Yeah.
And just a lump sum, 8% return in 7 years, you would have gained $57,000 of interest. Okay. Conversely, if you took the $580 you're saving on the other loan and just put it in a month, monthly, you just deposit month after month, you've only made $16,000 in 7 years. So much better off actually putting the money into the investment right in the beginning, and then this is just analysis on monthly payment, down payment, and redeploying that cash in a different asset class. It doesn't even talk about appreciation of the property, et cetera, because you get that on both sides.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what you're driving to is a couple different things in this scenario that I think are important to note. Number one, I think that having the ability to compare different loan programs and look at the impact that it has on people's financials to enable them to make smart decisions when it comes down to making the decision on which loan to get, I think is incredibly valuable. And a lot of this is going to depend on the situation that is specific to that client, because some people are more comfortable with a higher debt load than others. Some people will reinvest it. Some people may take that 80 grand in this particular example, and you could put that towards another investment property. And you and I both know the cash on cash return that you look at on investment properties that we've typically been looking at are well in excess of 15%. Sometimes they're getting closer to 25%.
Absolutely.
So, you're right. It's if you're able to hold on to that cash, I think it's really key. I think anytime you can leverage the bank's money, it's a wonderful thing. I mean, and you're leveraging money at 5.5%. And again, if you take an investment property that's turning, let's say 20%, then that's a 15% differential in terms of what you're getting versus what you're paying. So, it's a huge difference. And we should also take a moment and we should welcome Craig. And I know he was having some technical difficulties. So instead of seeing his beautiful face live, we're going to see this great picture of him in a suit and tie. And you're looking pretty spiffy there, Craig.
Thanks, guys.
Craig, what happened? What happened?
I don't
Use
know,
your phone.
man.
Use your iPhone. Dial in. Let's go. Come on.
Okay. So you want to know something interesting about me?
Tell us.
I come from an old tech background, like 90s, early 2000s. And for some reason, I can't get my darn camera to work.
Hey, I get it. I actually have an IT degree, so I can, if you need me to program something for you in Fortran, COBOL, or Pascal, languages that basically don't exist anymore except in old banking software, I can do that for you.
The dead languages.
Yeah, but it's not going to help you diddly squat for a video. So
QBasic or QBasic Pro, I think is where I got. So I can help you with some ones and zeros, Craig. That's about it. So Craig, we're talking about down payments, looking at the difference between taking mortgage insurance, not taking mortgage insurance. So we kind of dialed through that. But let's talk about Corona, California, because that's your neck of the woods. That's where you specialize. And last week I think we talked about some communities, but every week we're going to talk about a specific community, and it can be Corona. Yeah, you did. You talked to one that was a little bit closer to Corona, I believe, because people are commuting, living there. They can commute, and it's different than living in Orange County. It saves money. So, what are we talking about this week? Tell us what community we're talking about, and let's learn about that.
Okay, so yeah, we kind of compared and contrasted Sierra del Oro, which is the community you were talking about, which is closest to Orange County,
right.
Versus South Corona, which I don't know if you guys know Irvine at all, but Irvine is a very clean, well thought out, well laid out city, and so South Corona, I call it Irvine East, because if you the commute's horrible, but if you had a helicopter, you could just get over into Orange County in like 10 or 15 minutes because you'd go over the Cleveland National Forest, and you've got that backdrop just like you do in Irvine. It's beautiful.
Gorgeous. What else about that community, though?
It's a bedroom community. It's I'm sorry, I was trying to find camera settings still on the fly. But,
no worries.
Well, I can give you a couple things about the area statistic wise, because I had done a little bit of looking at it, and what was interesting to me, because we saw an overall reduction a little bit across all markets in November last year in terms of home purchase prices, but overall last year we saw an increase in pricing. But interestingly, South Corona is at least from the stats that I remember seeing, it's a little bit different. I think the sales price points were down about 1% year over year. I mean, not a big reduction, but a little bit. But I think that probably positions it better than for some increases in value this year. When I was looking at the average days on market, it's about the same year over year. So are you seeing a lot of inventory differential?
It's funny. Corona back in the heyday, when things were flying off the market like crazy,
Yeah.
prior to our most recent market, like 2004, 5, 6, somewhere in that range, we had about, if we had between 300 and 500 homes available on the market, they were just gone in 3 days. If a home was on the market for more than 3 days, you wondered what was wrong with it, right? Is it haunted? Is it just, is it unlivable? I mean, it almost didn't matter what the home was like, it was gone. And we just came out of a market like that a few months ago, right?
Yeah.
So the odd thing is, last time I looked, we had about 350 to 370 homes on the market in Corona. So you would think that things would be flying off the market like they were before. But instead of 3 days, we're seeing about 15 to 30 days on average, depending on where the home is, what community it's in, and what condition it's in, of course.
Well, I just looked up, I guess in December, just a tad over 100 homes were sold. So, about 1/3 of the that inventory level. So, that would make sense in terms of the the hold times then would be increasing from where they were in the past. But I think that's a great time for buyers to come into the market and use that to their advantage to negotiate concessions from the sellers. So, either reductions in price, and we always encourage people not to look at that, because we think if they take a look at the financial benefits associated with either getting their closing costs covered, or a buy down on the interest rate, or if somebody's converting from a rental to do either a 2-1 or a 3-2-1 buy down, that's what we encourage people to take a look at. But I think buyers can negotiate that more aggressively right now, especially if somebody needs to get out of their home quickly, because some people, they put it on the market and they need to get that house moved.
Well, and Scott, to add color to what you said, let's make sure that people understand what a 3-2-1 buy down or 2-1 buy down is. Because
Sure.
New followers, new viewers, and that's going to happen quite a bit because we don't have that many. But as we get more, we're gonna.
But my mom is an expert. She watches.
That's it. Perfect. So a 3-2-1 buy down is essentially, you're going to negotiate the seller in the concession to pay the differential in interest that you would pay the lender on your interest rate. So if it's a 3-2-1, it's a 3% reduction the first year, 2% reduction second year, 1% reduction third year, and then you're back to your fixed rate. The beauty of that is, versus just buying down the rate, is one, you can go down further. We talked about last week, you can go maybe 1% on a buy down. This, you go 3% down for the first year. Number two, you either refinance the house or you sell the house. That money's sitting in an escrow account that the lender holds for you, which they'll then disperse to you at that point. So the money is still yours.
Right.
So that's a much better option if you believe that interest rates are going to be coming back down and you're going to refinance in a year or two, or even sell. I like that because it sits in that account. It's not going anywhere. And so again, the lender draws from it every month to pay the difference of what it'd be in interest. So,
yeah, I think you can make a really strong case for that. And again, that's where when we run those comparisons, that's where it really starts to pay off, because you can take a look at what the impact is depending upon the assumptions you put into the model. And we've got our base set of assumptions, but we can adjust those as we go to take a look at that. So. And then
let me jump in real quickly.
Please.
There's a really cool tool that I use. I oftentimes will just pull up, how many homes are selling, how many homes are active, that kind of a thing. And I haven't done that for about 2 or so weeks. But I hop onto this other tool. It's called Altos Research, or Altos, ALTOS.RE. And you can punch in a city, you can punch in a zip code, you can punch in a county, and you can see median list price, average days on market, that kind of thing. Those numbers are a little bit skewed, by the way, But here's what I really like is it gives you, instead of having, I can get data a month back with some other tools that we have in research in real estate. By using Altos, their data is updated, I think, every Friday. So it's updated weekly, and it's a little bit more accurate, and you don't have to wait a whole month to get the data. So I just jumped on here, and it shows that inventory has decreased to 228 homes in Corona.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, I double checked that with the MLS, and I looked at active and coming soon. If I pull out coming soon, yeah. So 264 homes. So we saw obviously a couple of homes list over the weekend and yesterday, or the last couple of days. But I mean, that's 100 less than I thought.
Right.
Now, so what Altos is showing is that it's still a seller's market, barely. By their they've got a thing called Market Action Index, and anything over 30 points in that Market Action Index is a seller's market. So they're showing 41 points, where last month it was like, what was it, 30? It was like 39 points. Yeah. Oh, actually 40.8, but it still has jumped up a little bit. It's 41 points.
So how do you use that data then, Craig, when you're meeting with a buyer and you've got these tools, you've got this data to analyze, or even a seller for a listing for that matter, right? So you use two different sides of the equation. What are you looking, when you look at that data, how are you approaching the deal when making, let's say, an offer on a house and going to your buyer and saying, hey, here's how we're going to approach it based on this data? Or is that how you use it?
Right. So I use it really as a gauge because it's not an absolute. But the cool thing is that they do drill down on each city, county, whatever level you want to look at. Everything we hear on the news, everything that we hear or read in the papers and the blog sites and all the gloom and doom and all that kind of stuff, it's looking at the entire nation. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you a funny story. Do we have time for a funny story?
Yeah, plenty of time.
Absolutely.
I have a great client. He's very loyal, very friendly. He's a really good guy. He's renting out his home now. But before he bought that home, we had just met through an ad or some, or a listing. And he says, hey, I want to look at this house. And I said, okay, I can show you that house. And perhaps I could pull up a couple of other homes to take a look at. This was back when the homes were, we were seeing homes fly off the market in just a few days. And he said, sure, but, I know how the market is, Craig. You're not going to try and wrangle me into working with you. And I said, that's not the intention. But I do want to show you that I'm a good agent. I know the area. I know my stuff, and I want to do a good job for you. And he says, well, okay. And so we met. I always try to meet with the buyer before we go out so that we can get a feel for, what the market looks like and what to expect and all that kind of fun stuff, right?
Right.
So I'm sitting down with Tony, and I said, hey, Tony, I want you to know homes are selling in just a few days. And so we need to make sure that your financing's in line. We need to make sure that you're ready to go, that this is something that you really want to do. And let's hone in on the type of home that you really like. He says, Craig, I watch the news. I know what it's like. I know you realtors are always trying to push us into a purchase so you can get a quick commission. And I'm like, Tony, I'm telling you this for your own good. Okay. So a few weeks passed by, and he was relocating, by the way. So he wasn't out here regularly. A few weeks passed by. We had seen a house. This is funny. I'd never seen this before. There was a housing development that was foreclosed on. So the builder got foreclosed on before the homes were all completed. I think there were 18 standing homes. All they really needed was, carpet and an occupancy certificate. So, right. I mean, they were really, really close to being able to be occupied. And an investor picked them up, bought them for pennies on the dollar, and was selling those kind of like a new home builder would. Set up in a sales office, and had people coming through and was building a list of interested parties. Now, I had gone to him separately. I knew that Tony was dialed in and zoned in on this area, but Tony didn't believe me that it was really crazy. Like homes were just flying off the market. So I talked to the sales agent and I said, hey, look, I have a serious buyer. Let me show you his info. I know he would be interested in this lot or that lot. Can you hold those two for me until we can get him out? And he's like, I'll do my best. All right. Now I happen to be traveling at the time. So Tony calls me up. I said, hey, Tony, go meet with the sales agent. He's expecting you. He's holding 2 properties for you. He says, well, I'll just go down and I'll see what's going on. He gets there. He calls me in a panic. Craig, what's going on? There's people everywhere. It's crazy. They only have 2 houses left. I said, Tony, those houses are for you. You just need to make a decision on which one you want, and it's yours. Chose one of those houses, and he owns it to this day. So I don't use that as an absolute, but I do help. I use it to help drill down and reduce some of the time that it takes me to drill down on the local information.
Makes sense.
And we can see it's fairly accurate. You know, they said, what, 226, and we've got 260 some odd homes on the market right now. So 228. So it's good. It's a good visual for me to show the buyer and the seller where we are on the market. A few months ago, I'll just finish this point. A few months ago, that market action index, which is showing 41 today, was up to 90. It was 89 and 90. Yes.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Yeah. So I mean, so it's definitely moving more towards the seller, but I mean, still buyer advantage, but moving in that direction. You know, if you're right.
It's still a seller's market, but very close to being a buyer's market.
Yeah.
Now with the drop of inventory, we're, you know, obviously the advantage is a little bit more in the seller's, you know, range. However, I know that even, you know, statistics can't show you all the nuts and bolts about, you know, what's going on in the deals, right?
Right.
So I know that even though inventory is low, and so is, you know, the buyer demand, because I just talked to a buyer yesterday. He said, look, she said, I can't buy a house at 7.5% interest rate. I said, well, good news. They dropped. They're not 7.5. That was a month and a half ago.
Exactly.
So the buyers don't know. And this data doesn't show the nuts and bolts. Some of the nuts and bolts is that sellers are saying, hey, look, I don't have enough buyers coming through my door. I want to offer an incentive, just like what you guys were talking about a couple of minutes ago before I started flapping my gums. So those rate buy downs have been very effective in keeping the buyer demand higher than it would be.
You know, this is interesting, though. This really illustrates why our show adds value to potential buyers, because every community is unique in itself. If you looked at overall, like what's in the news, oh, real estate's horrible, this and that. Craig's in a seller's advantage market right now. And that's where it takes to have an insider to that market that understands the dynamics of what's going on locally in the market they represent. So that's really good to see that. Craig, I want to circle back to last week. We were talking about the Jobs Act, and you specifically said, hey, I want to learn more about that. It's, you know,
I'm so glad. Thank you.
Specifically to depreciation. And then after that, Scott, I want to hit Craig. I want to mind blow him with another loan program that we have that you want to talk about earlier. So we're gonna dive deep in a couple of different things here. But Scott, go ahead and talk about the Jobs Act and how an investor can take advantage of it, and make sure we illustrate what depreciation even means, right? From a business standpoint.
Sure. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do one other quick thing though, because I want to piggyback on something that Craig brought up. And
sure.
You know, Craig, when you were speaking to trying to inform your buyer, right? What's going on in the market and the need for them to get out there quickly. And, you know, one of the things similar to you having that discussion with someone that's looking to buy, you know, when we get introduced to a potential buyer, we're always talking to them about getting pre-qualified, and much the same, many times the buyers will think, oh, they're just trying to sell me a loan. They're just trying to get me in a loan. And we're not. What we're trying to do is get them the qualification information so they know what their buying power looks like, what the interest rates are, and then put them in a position so that if they find a home and there are multiple buyers on it, they've got that qualification, which, although not as good as a cash buyer, gets them pretty damn close. And it's just funny when you're trying to help people prep so they can get the best deal in the market. Many times they think you're just trying to sell them a product. So anyway,
from a professional standpoint, it's helpful for a realtor to have a pre-qualification in hand on a number of fronts. One is, their time is valuable and limited. And Craig doesn't want to drive around and show a bunch of houses if the guy can't even qualify for a loan or has the cash to buy a house.
Right.
And two, I mean, some houses, like I know somebody selling their house right now, you can't even get their house unless you're pre-qualified. They live there. And so they're going to be vetted and they're not going to show it.
Yeah. So, that's, I wanted to make sure we got that point in, since it was kind of so well set up with that slow hanging curve that Craig set me up with. I had to hit it, right. So let's talk Jobs Act then for just a second.
Real quick, I do want to make that point. Or at least cement that point. A lot of buyers think just what you said. They're just trying to push me into a loan. They're trying to, get me further down the road. No, the reality of it, and I just had somebody else the other day. He called me up. He was interested in this home. Didn't think he was really in the game, but he just wanted to go out and take a look. Past client of mine, so I was willing to show him the home without a pre-qual. But we talked about how important it was. Gets out, sees the home. He's like, this could really work for me. Well, if he had, now that home happens to need some work and he likes that kind of a thing. But if it was a home where there was, I've got a listing. We had 5 offers at one time, 7 total, but 5 that we were negotiating at the same time. If you come in and go, hey, I really like this house. Now I've got to go back to the lender, get them all my paperwork and all that kind of stuff. You missed your opportunity because it's gone that day or the next day. So if you come in with the qualification or pre-qualification and you go, hey, look, lenders looked at all my info. Here's the pre-qual. I know I can afford it. I know what the payment looks like. Now I can make a strong offer. You are not going to miss out on that opportunity. And so many people lose the first home that they love so much because they weren't ready and they didn't believe the professionals that were telling them, do this so you're in a good position.
And I might add, there's a big difference between being pre-approved versus pre-qualified.
Sure. Yeah.
I can look and pre-approve you, but pre-qualify, I've actually got to verify income, employment, all the whole 9 yards. So
thank you. And if I said pre-approved, that was my bad. Pre-qualified is what I'm always looking for. Okay.
Yeah. No, you did. He was just
actually pre-approved is what you want. Pre-qualified.
Yes.
You said it absolutely right. I'm just adding to the nomenclature of the discussion. That's all.
Last thing, since we're on this, is the other thing that we help people with when we do this, once we go through that pre-qualification, is we also run them through those loan scenarios and those closing negotiations, the buyer negotiations, so that they know up front, do they want to ask for closing costs or 2-1 buy down that's paid by them, or do they want to go after a reduction in price if it's available? So they've already got that in their back pocket. So it's just like everything else. The more prepared you can be, the better. And that's what we all collectively, and that's why we've set up this group. If you're ready to take a look at this market, we can, between the 3 of us, we can get you prepped so that you can make the best deal possible and you're ready to move when you find the right property.
And it's a dynamic approach per buyer. Everybody's different.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, guys. I got the sun kind of fading in and out, so it's
can't tell. You're fine.
Like right here.
Oh, that's horrible.
Wow. Yeah.
If that was me, I would literally see smoke and I would just sizzle like a vampire.
I moved just wrong. But so let's talk Jobs Act for just a second. So Jobs Act was passed to encourage people to invest, and not just invest in real estate. It was invest in businesses overall. And what the Jobs Act did, one of the tenets of the Jobs Act, was to allow people to depreciate their investment more quickly than what they would otherwise be able to do. And a lot of people don't realize, but when you take a look at real estate investment property, there are two different depreciation schedules that you need to consider right off the bat, and that's going to be dependent upon the type of rental you're doing. So if it's a short-term rental, you're going to be looking at a depreciation that's over 39 years and a long-term rental that's over 27 and a half. And my understanding is the IRS is sending quite a few more audits through the process when they believe that someone is doing a short-term rental and using a 27.5-year depreciation schedule. So it's certainly something people need to talk to their CPA about, but that's an important piece of consideration. Now, that has nothing to do with the Jobs Act, but when you take a look at the Jobs Act, what it allows investors to do is take everything that is in a 15-year depreciation window or shorter and depreciate that in the first year of ownership. And last year, you were able to take 100% of that accelerated depreciation. And in 2023, it's only 80% of that depreciation. But to give you a feel for how this works, we had an investor looking at a property in Florida, and I think it was around a $700,000 investment property that they were taking a look at. And between their tax bracket and the deal structure that was being put forward, and the way the cost of that particular property were calculated out, they were able to recover a bit over 70% of their down payment in the first year in the form of tax savings and cash flow savings in that property. So in essence, they could buy a second investment property, let's say year 2, at 75% of the value of that first property, roll right into that. And now they got 2 investment properties that they're able to roll into. And basically the government has paid for the second one. And, people don't realize that if they haven't done the real analysis on that Jobs Act and what it means. There are a couple of caveats that everybody needs to be made aware of, because in order to take that full depreciation and put it against other active income, you have to be considered to be a professional real estate investor, according to the IRS rules. But there's also several different things to consider when you look at meeting that standard. If you're doing short-term rentals, you only need to have 100 hours that you can document against your real estate holdings. Whereas if it's a long-term rental, you have to have 500 hours in. I mean, that's one of the big criteria that you have to hit. But and we can walk through tremendous detail on this with an individual investor, because there's so many things to think about. But the net of it is you can recover a very significant chunk of your down payment still this year on an investment property. I think it's a phenomenal program.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note there is a lot of detail. We're just glossing over the surface of how this thing works. And we have in our network professionals we'll connect you with that are, tax attorneys, CPAs, financial planners that understand this intricately, because you need that. There's, for example, short-term rental, the 100 hours.
Yeah.
Doesn't work if somebody else has 100 hours or 101. You have 100, they have 101. You have to be the one that has the most hours. So let's say you hire a cleaning crew and you have one person that's your cleaner, and that person's there cleaning and they hit 105 hours. You just disqualified yourself from that exemption, that classification, excuse me. If there's 2 cleaners and they both have 50 and 52, you still are the one that has 100. So you could have 5 cleaners that have 80 hours each, and you're fine. So point being, there's a lot to unravel, and you truly need a professional tax person to do this for you. But we're going to show you how that helps you with real estate and saving and lowering your tax basis.
Well, and Ted, one of the things I love about having you as a partner is you always allow me to put 1 extra hour in on all of our short-term rentals, so I get full out. I appreciate that. Thank you.
For at least a week. Our tax attorney hates us. Okay, so I teased the loan program, but Craig, guess what? You gotta wait.
You're gonna blow my mind.
I'm gonna make you wait till next week. But We're gonna we still have to, because we have to have fun, and we can't all just be business. So we introduced a segment last week where we talked about something unique that to our local area. Scott, you go first, and then we're going to reveal something that Craig didn't hear because he logged in a little bit.
Oh, wait a minute. I looked
restaurant, bar, museum, surf lessons.
You know what? You mentioned surf lessons. I am going to tell you. There's a great guy, and his name is Crash. And I love the name Crash for having this guy that teaches surf lessons, right? So he teaches old people, young people, and the guy looks like Santa Claus on a surfboard. This is not a small guy. This is a big guy, big beard. You know, I
want a picture of him next week.
All right, next week I'll bring the picture. But This guy is a great surf instructor. He typically teaches in Santa Monica. So if anybody wants to get connected to Crash for surf lessons, let me know. And he's coming down to Redondo Beach on occasion. So he has worked with my 10-year-old daughter, and she can now surf on her own after 4 weeks worth of lessons. So it's been
that's awesome.
It's a really cool. And
now, is she using a long board? Is it a short board? Is it, what is she using?
It's basically a pontoon boat that is also called a surfboard. So it's extraordinarily easy to stand on because it's about a mile long. But yes, it still qualifies for surfing. It's great. And
Craig, before you share your area with me, I have to ask, is that picture really you? Because when I go to build websites and I look for a realtor picture, this is the picture that pops up. So is that Craig Yace in the picture?
That's Craig Yace. And, I'm going to point something out, and then after that, you can't unsee it.
Okay.
My tie's crooked, and it bugs the crud out of me. But
that's why I'm not wearing a tie.
That was aside from squinting because of the sun in my eyes, that was probably one of the best pictures that came out of 150 shot.
Is that amazing?
Session. Yeah. Anyway, so crooked tie or not, I had to keep it.
There you go. Now, tell us a cool place, interesting place. Tell us something that we can do in Corona or surrounding areas.
Okay. I've got a great idea. Okay. So I had mentioned microbreweries. There's one in a neighborhood, actually, or a shopping center near me. They had 5 premier type restaurants around a lake. It's called Dos Lagos because there's 2 lakes there. Oh, by the way, here's a fun fact. The Butterfield Stagecoach back in the late 18, early 1900s used to run right past there. It's now a street called Temescal Canyon, but it used to be a dirt road that the stagecoach ran on. Probably saw the Wells Fargo coach. But aside from that, back to Stone Church Brewery, they brew these micro brew beers. They kind of go, the old church, right? The friars would make beer and sell it. So that's kind of their thing. That's their shtick, right? It's the old church brewing that the friars did to bring money in for the churches. Cool people. They're actually a little bit more connected with a different realtor, but I'm still going to give them a plug because it's a really great place. Nice vibe. They have live music and that kind of thing. And this is kind of fun. I think it's on Tuesdays or Sundays and Tuesdays. If you go to Stone Church, have some beer, not a whole lot, head on over to the Starlight Theater. They've got very comfy chairs. You can get into a movie for $5. Again, I think it's Sunday and Tuesday, and they actually serve beer there too. So if you want to keep the party going, watching a movie, you're dialed in.
I love it.
That's great. Okay.
It's a fun little place. There's lots of cool shops too. So
mine's going to be an off the wall place that came up to me. I didn't even know about this. It came to my attention, I think, last night. And there's a gentleman named Zach. I'm going to mess his name up. Zach Bagans. And he used to have a ghost, ghost chaser, some type of one of those A&E shows. I'm butchering the title of the show, but he would go look at stuff that was haunted. He has a haunted museum here in Las Vegas. And the artifacts that he has in there, I mean, it's dark. I'm telling you, this is not a place to take your kids. He's got like Dr. Kevorkian's van
Oh,
where he
geez.
would.
Oh,
Oh
my
no,
God.
it's insane. There's all sorts of like just dark and interesting things. But that's here in Vegas. That's what we have is these weird museums and stuff. Like we have a mob museum. We got a neon light where all the neon light graveyards from all the casinos, which is amazing. But yeah, the haunted museum. Go on YouTube, search Zach Bagans Haunted Museum Las Vegas, and you'll see all sorts of interesting videos and paranormal stuff that was associated with this place.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, everybody's like, "Oh man, thanks for bringing the show down, Ted." Okay, Craig, before you hopped on the show, I posed the question of I described 3 interesting things, and I'm asking our viewers to let us know who they think that each person is associated with the interesting past experience was. Okay, so now we're going to reveal. Craig, I had to use one you provided me a text. It wasn't much, so I had to roll with it. So number 1.
I
The
didn't
guy with the
understand
innate
when
ability.
you wanted it.
The guy, it's all right. It's all right. The guy with the innate ability to predict text when somebody sends a text and half of it's not there was Craig Yace. Craig's got an innate ability to do that. Okay. Number 2, the guy that appeared on Judge Judy. And did he win? By the way, I don't know if he won yet, but Scott Benson was on Judge Judy. And did you win, Scott?
No, I didn't win. I did not win. But, yeah, but it was a whole thing though. We kind of knew in advance and kind of did our deal to make it happen. I wanted a trip to New York, and it was a client we actually had a really good relationship with, and they take things out of small claims court. I got to tell you that what an absolutely hilarious experience, and to hear them announce you as you're going in, and that whole, what most people don't realize is that whole court, it's basically all like cardboard-ish walls, right? I mean,
oh gosh,
nothing there is real. The people that came on set, at least back in that time, I mean, they may take people that are, not in great shape and give them some nice clothes to go sit in the audience. It was something else. It was something else. It was a hell of an experience. I'll say that.
All right. And last but not least, the one to perform the legendary Houdini's Metamorphosis was me, Ted Hicks. I used to do magic, and I had a partner of mine named Julio Sevilla, and we had Magic Moment Entertainment, and my stage name. Now I should say this. You're gonna love it. Ted Diamond. Ted Diamond. All right. So with that, for Scott Benson, for Craig Yace, and me, Ted Diamond, we're the Real Estate Mortgage Insiders. We'll see you next week.
All right.